I'd like to call the March 15th regular meeting of the Middletown Board of Education to order. Pastor Williams, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could you please remain standing for a moment of silence? This moment of silence is for Louis Martell, Jr. Louis Martell, Jr., the brother-in-law of Ann Martell. Ann Martell, a very valuable employee of the district for many years, presently at the Teacher Center. She worked formerly in media and also in the Board of Education office. Mr. Martell was very family-oriented. He enjoyed cooking. He enjoyed taking care of his grandchildren. In addition, he enjoyed hunting, fishing, and NASCAR, all with his children and grandchildren. So please remember Louis Martell in your thoughts and prayers. He most definitely will be missed in the community. And I might add, he served his country as a U.S. Navy, in the U.S. Navy. Thank you so much. See, Mrs. Blumenau, could you please read our mission statement?
My pleasure. We strive to provide fiscally sound educational opportunities in a safe environment that continuously supports our diverse student population. We will enable all students to graduate, to reach their full potential, to become lifelong learners, and to be competitive, productive members of society.
Thank you, Mrs. Blumenau.
You're welcome.
I'd like a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
Here.
Here.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I'd like a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now on to the minutes. We have three minutes to approve, March 1st, 6th, and 14th. If there's no objection, I'd like to call for approval together. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we come to a very, very pleasant part of the evening. Recognitions, announcements, and community reports. And Mr. DelMoro, Superintendent DelMoro.
Thank you, Mr. Perino, members of the Board of Education, and Middletown School community. This is an exciting evening to really recognize some of the super talent that we have artistically in our school district among our students. We've been participating for several years now, and I certainly don't want to steal all of the thunder from Mrs. Ferreira's presentation, and she'll explain all of this. But we've been involved in this for several years, and certainly was Dr. Eastwood's inception and passion to bring the Scholastic Art Awards to not only our school district, but to our region. And now this has grown among several different counties within our region. But before I ask Mrs. Ferreira to come to the microphone, I want to express on behalf of the Board of Education, all of the staff here in our school district, about the exemplary work that's displayed in several different type of art mediums. And tonight we're just going to see a small glimpse of what our children can showcase to the world, our talented students. We also have a special recognition tonight, which I promised Mrs. Ferreira I wouldn't say what it was, about one of these really phenomenal achievements. Mrs. Ferreira?
Thank you, Mr. DelMoro. Good evening. My name is Janet Ferreira, and I have had the pleasure of working on the Scholastic Arts program since the inception of our regional affiliate 10 years ago, when Dr. Eastwood created it. And tonight we are recognizing the artistic accomplishments of our regional gold and silver Scholastic winners. But to put their accomplishments into perspective, I'm just going to take a few minutes to explain and provide more background on the Scholastic program. So Scholastic is a national program, and we abide by their rules and guidelines that they establish. And while we are 10 years old, National Scholastic is 95 years old, and this program was established back in 1923. Supporting National are the regional affiliates, and we are one of 100 regional affiliates across the United States. This year, nationally, there were 70,000 students who participated with over 330,000 art submissions. The guidelines of the program allow only students in grades 7 through 12 to participate. Now, our regional affiliate, as Mr. DelMoro indicated, includes 4 counties. So it includes Orange, Sullivan, Dutchess, and Ulster. And we partner with the various BOCES that support the program, as well as the Orange County Arts Council. For our region, we had 945 students participate with almost 4,000 submissions, and there were over 35 schools who participated across the counties. Now, this slide is my data slide, and there's a lot of numbers on here. But this slide is very powerful because it tells a great story, and it tells the story of a successful program. It tells you that when we started, the top part of the slide is the regional information, and the blue is Middletown. So when we started regionally, we had 362 awards, and Middletown had 59 awards or submissions. This year, our region had almost 3,900 submissions, and Middletown was at 742. Now, just as a point of reference, the number of submissions that we had this year at 742 was 250 submissions over last year alone. So it was a tremendous effort this year by the teachers and the students, and they were well rewarded. The other piece on this slide is that it indicates the 4 levels of awards. Gold is the top, and then silver, honorable mention, and participation. National makes very specific guidelines that we must adhere to when we're judging, in that the gold for the category, you can only award 7% max to gold winners. For silver, you can only award a max of 10%, and then honorable mention is 15%. The adjudication or judging is a very robust process, as you can certainly understand, as the number of submissions has dramatically increased. It has now become a 2-day process, 18 hours, 15 judges, and a large number of rooms of facility because the artwork is adjudicated digitally at this point. National sets the criteria that the judges must follow. It is a blind judging. The jurors do not know the identities of the students or where they're from. They are professional artists who are retired or teachers, so they are not tied to any school district. But they must focus on the 3 criteria that National dictates, which is originality, and that is simply defined as challenging the conventions, going beyond a classroom assignment. Technical skill, which really is defined as advancing an original perspective. And then the emergence of a personal voice or vision is what is the unique point of view or style of that particular student. We have had our regional ceremony on February 2nd. For the last 9 years, we have held the ceremony at SUNY New Paltz, and for the last 5 years, we have had over 800 attendees, both students and families, and that was for this year as well. They braved the weather, and the walking and the parking, and it's phenomenal. We have all of the gold and silver regional winners exhibited. This year, because of the number of winners, we had to use all 3 floors at the Rotunda, which is a separate building at SUNY New Paltz, but we did keep it up for 3 weeks. New Paltz loves it. They have a great art program there, and it really is showcasing for, what our region is capable of. Now, although this slide says what's next, this happened yesterday. So there was National Notification Day was yesterday. And so what does that mean? All of the region, every region, all 100 affiliates, any gold winner is automatically sent to national. So the regional is the first round of judging, and national is, of course, the second level of judging. So national gets all of the region's gold winners, and they judge the regional gold winners. We found out yesterday that our region had 17 national gold winners, which is our highest number yet. Of the 17, 5 were actually national golds, and we had 12 national silvers. What is really exciting is that we had our second Middletown winner and national winner in 10 years. She is with us tonight. Christina Wilson, if you can stand up, we want to give you a special round of applause for winning a national silver. So we are going to be doing something special with Christine's artwork. It will get framed and hung at the high school along with the other gold piece. Then there's a plaque that'll have some information. So that'll be completed within the next 2 weeks or so. And we're really congratulate you and honored for the work that you accomplished. Now for the gold winners, our national gold winners that won, and any gold winner, there is a national ceremony that is at Carnegie Hall. And this year, the exhibition is at the Parsons School of Design in the Pratt Institute. Additionally, on the day of the National Gold Ceremony, June 7th, the Empire State Building is lit in gold. It's really quite pretty. Now, how could we have all the student submissions, 250 more than last year, without our teachers? This year, we had our highest number of teacher participation from all of the 3 schools that were allowed to participate, the Monhegan, Twin, and the high school. The teachers did a fabulous job, and they really helped make our students successful in terms of all of the paperwork that had to be done and helping really developing that understanding of what a submission is on a regional level. So thank you to all, a special thank you to all of our teachers. Finally, these are all of our students that won. We had 28 unduplicated student names for, I think, 42 gold and silver winners. We have a lot of these winners with us here tonight, and I'm going to turn over the student recognition portion. Actually, I have Dana Herm, who is the Middletown Art Department Chair. She's going to say a few words, and that's what's next. Dana?
Good evening. Thank you again for having us here tonight. It's my pleasure to be here to recognize our talented art students for their success in the Scholastic Art Awards. They've worked hard not only in the classroom but outside of the classroom as well, and they've gained a great understanding of healthy competition in the arts for this adjudication process. This year I would like to thank Ms. Ozerchuk and Ms. DePico for taking the lead on gathering submissions and registration forms. They did an amazing job with the amount of paperwork alone that had to be dealt with. So I really don't want to take up any more time from from us, I want to recognize our students. So I'm going to call up Miss O and Miss DePico. And we have something special for each of the students. So when you call your name, just come on up and stand over here to the left.
Good evening. So let's get this started. We have Austin Behringer. Can we have Austin? Is it coming on? It's coming up. Okay, excellent. When you come up and get your special surprise, if you could take it out of the bag, and this way when we all take a picture together, you can have it ready to go. Can we, keep going? Some of these students couldn't make it this evening. There we go, there's Austin. The next up we have Brittany Cortez. There we go. The next one is Ashley Daring. The next one we have is for Alexis Greaves, but she couldn't be here today, so her mother so lovingly is joining us and going to accept it for her. Oh, and her brother. No? There's Alexis's work. The next one we have is Casey Hill. And the next is Elijah Hodges. And we have Caitlin Irazeri. I apologize if I butcher that name. Close enough. Thank you, sweetie. There we go. And Sean Knight. And Sarah Rivera. And the next one is Christina Wilson.
This is the piece that won national silver. Lady of the Light.
And Madison Witt. And last but definitely not least, Allison Zulich. Zulich. So these are our gold and silver winners.
Okay. Mike?
I have it already printed out, and then it's going to go get framed. Sure. Let me press record, and I'll have your email. You are all emailed.
Thank you for the recognition.
Very much.
Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Thank you.
Feel lonely. I'm in New Jersey. At least you guys are here. The clouds were too heavy. I couldn't come.
I've been hanging out with you three all day, so.
Now I think we'll begin recognitions, announcements, and community reports. Mr. Gomez, are you ready?
Amen.
Who has a timer?
He does.
He's gonna have to
Put
time
that
himself.
right on there.
That's self-time.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of things. In the last few weeks, the Fair Funding Committee met for the first time. I don't believe I reported last time. And one of the things that the Fair Funding Committee is looking at is reviewing those unfunded mandates that are are strangling our schools and sometimes affects the tax burden of our local property owners that work so hard to fund our schools. Our goal is to be able to identify many of those mandates that hopefully we could do away with, and to reach out to our local legislatures in the state assembly and state senate to see what they could do. I know for a fact that there has been legislation in the past introduced in Albany to eliminate some, if not all, of the unfunded mandates. It hasn't passed, but you have to keep up fighting the good fight and hopefully build consensus across party lines to see that could work for the good of our schools, school district, and our children, and our ability to give them a great education. Another issue that we hope to look at it's been the stalemate in the state senate with respect to the legislation affecting the health insurance of our school staff and personnel. Again, we hope to see what we could do to hopefully move things along there and make sure that the exemplary program we put in place in our school could have the support it needs at the state level. Also during this past week, we've had the Monhegan Middle School concert, and I was happy to be there and congratulate the staff and faculty, Principal Rodonia, and the Fine Arts or Music Department for fine work done with the kids who are always shining and glowing in all their best. And we've had the parent-teacher conference, which are still continuing, and even though they were rescheduled, when I went to, for my own kids, the parking lot at the junior high school was packed. That's good. So parents put the time to go meet with their teachers. Finally, last week, I had the opportunity to attend Middletown Common Council as liaison, along with my colleagues Vince Crescenzo and Bishop John Williams. At the Middletown Common Council, various of the aldermen expressed support or their solidarity with our school district, our students, in our efforts to make sure that school security be a top priority and that our students' voices be heard also with respect to that. The mayor also did express his support for that as well at the Common Council meeting. And there was other programs that were, information that was shared there, and I think Mr. Crescenzo took the initiative looking into it, the program at Horn Hospital. Maybe you want to share a little bit about it? So at this time, I'm going to yield the floor to Vince Crescenzo to wrap up the Middletown presentation.
You caught me flat-footed. I can't remember what the program was called, but it's like an incubator program, and it's at the Truro College, and this organization company, they work with fledgling tech companies, but basically in the medical field. And they're successful in other communities, and they're going to start one here. And it was a very impressive presentation. A little bit of it was hard to understand. But one of the positive things I got from it is that they will take interns from different high schools. They already have some students from Pine Bush working there. So we connected this person with staff here, and hopefully they can make something work for our students as interns. And the tech programs that start there, they have 4 years to develop into a thriving business. So that it's not only good for the community, but it's also going to bring, hopefully, if it takes off, it'll bring jobs here into Middletown. So, yeah, and the mayor fully supported that, and I guess we'll be, on some level, be a part of that too. Thank you. Should I go on with the rest of my stuff? Are you finished?
There was one more thing, but Mr.
Go ahead.
Consensus,
No, you
I'm
finish.
Are you finished?
One more thing.
Are you over your 4 minutes?
Oh, no, not even.
Okay,
not
go
even a
ahead.
minute. Okay. And since I'm not a member of the U.S. Senate, I'm not doing filibusters, okay? The only other thing is, being a history person myself, and I think the board member who previously served on my chair was also a social studies background, Mr. McElroy. I've always enjoyed seeing all the wonderful stuff being done by our students in the history classes, visiting, of course, my own children's teachers. And I would like to, I guess, call on the school district to consider maybe, or tabling for the future, to see whether we could get a grant that will allow our students to maybe visit a lot of the national parks, historic landmarks that exist within close proximity, like Hyde Park, the home of former President Franklin Roosevelt, Ellis Island and Lady Liberty, as well as Grant's Tomb. I mean, it brings history to life and inspire them to be the future leaders. And I think it would be nice if we could get a grant. I know from in recent years our kids have done fundraisers, but these are special trips. And you think we have the Hyde Park Museum, which goes a lot into World War II, Franklin Roosevelt. They could even visit the grave of his dog Fowler. It's out there. And even though we haven't had maybe funds from outside for that, but if we could develop or work on a grant maybe with the U.S. Parks Department, the Department of Interior, there might be something to look at, and I'll be happy to help with that if need be. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. You are tackling the unfunded mandates. I give you a lot of credit. I'm going to call you a resident Don Quixote.
Okay. Oh, thank you. I'll try.
You go right ahead. I hope you succeed where others have not succeeded in the past. So good for you.
Well, sometimes you have
Keep
to
trying.
paddle hard and long.
Michael's working on the list. It is a very... Mr. Tuttle's working on that list, compiling it. It keeps adding each year. Unfortunately, there's very little, if any, comes off the list, and it is an extensive list, and it's going to be more than a few hours to compile. So we are getting that list together for the board to review.
That'd be great. And I believe it was Superintendent Eastwood who mentioned that if we were to get rid of, or New York State would reorganize unfunded mandates, get rid of at least 40%, that could be a significant reduction in the property taxes.
Yes,
and I think that would be a boon to our local economy and maybe attract more people to continue to move to Middletown.
And the last I heard, there were approximately 107 or 144 unfunded mandates. Maybe it's gone down since then, but be it as it may.
I don't think so.
Mrs. Blumenau.
It's not going down, it's going up.
On Sunday, I had the pleasure, along with fellow board members, Mr. Gomez and Mr. Perino, to attend the town hall meeting with Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney. Very interesting. It was a group I was a little, honestly, I was a little disappointed in the turnout of the Middletown community. I don't think that it was well publicized to our community. I think it was not, it happened very, very quickly. I found out about it, I was there, but I think that not a lot of people really knew that it was going on. And there were 4 of them in our area, in his area of coverage. Who turned out was strong NRA support, a lot of speaking about, a lot of people, everyone had their chance to talk. He was very receptive to listening to what was going on. And that's why I went, was really to listen more than speak so much. I did have a couple of comments I wanted to make, but unfortunately, there were just so many people speaking. Thankfully, Mr. Gomez and Mr. Perino did have an opportunity to speak, which was great. And it was very interesting to hear the community speak. But as I said, there were people here from Pine Bush, Montgomery, Washingtonville. We had some people from, I think there were some people from Monroe, Port Jervis, but not a whole lot from Middletown. But it was, I'd like to see more of those happen, because trying to figure out how to handle gun violence, or what, there are so many views about what the problems are and how to fix them. There's no one right answer, is basically what I walked away with. It's a combination of, we have to be diligent in creating a whole picture and coming at it from all angles, not just securing our buildings, but also securing that our mental health is being attended to, that kids who are at risk are being attended to, and it really is, and certainly, arming our teachers, was brought up 100 times, not something that I'm in favor of, but anyway, it was just interesting to hear the conversations, but clearly, we need to be vocal about it, and if you have something to say, if you have ideas about what we could be doing better, I think that all of us, bottom line, is that we want to hear them. We're 9 people who sit on this board and don't have all the answers, and certainly I never say I have the answers, but if you have something to bring to the table, I encourage the community to do so. Thank you.
I got a little bit of a backlog here. We missed some of these in some previous meetings. Back to February 6th, the Middletown High School NJRTC had their annual inspection and awards parade, and if you want to see something impressive, you should see this. There are about 120 cadets involved. The highlight of it was Major Michael Culligan, is a Marine Corps officer who served, he was deployed in Iraqi Freedom, and he's been doing a lot of teaching at different colleges, and at this point he's at RPI. And the performance was, they had a presentation of colors and national anthem, naturally, an invocation, and then there was the orders of the day, which outlined what was going to happen for the next 45 minutes. Officers center march, the officers displayed their discipline and formation marching, what have you. And one of the most impressive things was the drill exhibition, where these 120 cadets in 4 corners of the room did their march. They marched together, through each other. The precision was unbelievable. And Major Culligan did a verbal review of what he saw, and we got nothing but high honors. He was very, very impressed with what the students did. And one of the takeaways I got was that every one of these students, every one of these cadets, you could see the discipline in their faces and the pride of what they are and what they're doing. It was just incredibly impressive. So thanks to Commander Wall and Master Sergeant Willard for doing this program and showing their expertise and their drive and their pride, and it's instilled in their cadets. So that was an excellent time. The Breakfast of Champions, that's one of my favorite things here at the high school. Mr. Whitaker and his crew. The takeaway I get from this every time, and I hope people don't get tired of me saying the same thing, is just the faces on these students as, they're sitting there and all of a sudden their name is called, they come up, they get a token and a certificate, they shake hands. Every time you look out there, you see their faces, boom, big smiles on their faces, and more important to me were the families. Every one of them came with a parent or a guardian, and the glow on their faces. And I don't remember how many, but there were quite a few, close to 100 maybe. Just amazing. And ShopRite supplies the bagels and different foods and coffee and juice and things. And thank you to ShopRite because they always do a great job with that. The demonstration yesterday, another proud moment for me. Watching these students, about 1,200 students came out of the front. We had to change the plans. We were supposed to go down to the field, but obviously there was snow on the ground. But I think this worked out better. We came out to the front of the high school, around the flagpole. 1,200 students left the building in an orderly way, marched around the corner. They did some chants and slogans and what have you. 4 students stood up they had a truck there as a platform. They gave impassioned speeches, very well done, very organized, very to the point. And when it was over, all the students went right back inside. It was just so impressive. And you can tell they knew what this was about. They had that feeling that this hopefully is the start of something big, and they're a part of it. And again, it just makes me very, very happy to see this type of fervor and organization and pride that we have in this district. Let's see, what else? And part of that, the chief of police, I can never pronounce his name. Chief was here with other officers. Their presence was a feeling of security. We appreciated them being here. We appreciated the support that the city gave us. They mingled with the students. The students spoke with them. It was a very, very good showing on their part. We appreciated that. Let's see. The Kiwanis breakfast, was it last Sunday? That went over very well. I don't know what the final outcome was, but when I was there about 11 o'clock, the place was packed. They were doing very, very well here at the high school. What did I forget? Well, I think that would be it. So it was a busy couple of months, and I'm glad I caught up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo, for covering items that I would have covered. I appreciate that. That will lessen my time. Thank you. Bishop Williams.
Well, several things. I want to go back to, forgive me, I'm in need of caffeine. I mean, if my wife is watching, coffee, please. The Mountain Dew is doing nothing.
Except caffeine, I guess that's not enough.
Not enough for me, not tonight. I want to go back to last Friday. On this past Friday, had the opportunity to attend again this year the Sojourner Truth Awards held at SUNY Orange. Again, we had I can't remember the exact numbers, but we had a great number of Middletown students.
Approximately 100.
Approximately 100.
100, yeah.
Approximately 100. That received recognition at the Sojourner Truth Awards. Again, the largest amount of any of the schools in the region. So I want to congratulate them and the teachers and the staff on a job well done. I always enjoy the Sojourner Truth Awards because it's really they cover such a wide variety of achievements. And so I really enjoy that and the spirit of Sojourner Truth that is shown during that time. I left from there and made my way across town in exactly 9 minutes and 45 seconds. to Middletown High School for the concert at Middletown High School, the band and the orchestra concert. Once again, an awesome job by our music department. As a musician, I always appreciate music of all kinds, but they did such a fine job, and you can see the maturity. You can hear the maturity. You can hear the growth as they are progressing in their music. And so, again, kudos, congratulations to all of the students that participated, as well as the teachers that participated. From there, I had the opportunity to be at the walkout on yesterday, as was Mr. Crescenzo and Mr. Perino. Wonderful job by our students. Again, all of the four students that spoke yesterday spoke very eloquently, did a fantastic job. There were at least 1,200 students that were outside, but according to Mr. DelMoro, there was also at least 900 to 1,000 students that were inside. So the majority of our student body participated in this event. From what I can guesstimate, from the information that I have gained over the last 24 hours, we had the largest contingency of students that did participate in that protest on yesterday, and they did it with such great pride. They did it with great discipline, and I am so proud, not just as a board member, but as a community member and as a parent. I am extremely proud of the way that they presented themselves, and I believe that they represented the Middletown School District with great distinction. And so, with that being said, this is also leading into the 24th of this month, which is the March for Our Lives, which is the national march, which is being sponsored as well as a follow-up to this protest yesterday. Nationally, there are at least 740 plus protests that will be going on in municipalities all over the country, and I'm proud to say that Middletown is one of those municipalities that is participating in this region, along with Poughkeepsie and I believe Beacon, and these students that were involved on yesterday will also be greatly involved on the 24th. That march will begin gathering at 9 a.m. at Lot 1, at the Orange County, at SUNY Orange, which is the Orange Hall lot. From there, we'll proceed to march down South Street and over the route, which will be posted. It will be posted. There will be calls going out, emails. It's on social media. So many different areas that you'll be able to find this information out over the next week. But from there, we proceed over to the future Erie, I believe it's the Erie Street Park, which is the field adjacent to the new skateboard park. And from there, with the support of the City of Middletown, the Board of Education, the Interfaith Council, the Greater Middletown Christian Ministers Alliance, and so many other organizations, there will be a rally from 11 o'clock to 12 noon, and the speakers are going to be the students. No politicians, no adults. It is their protest. It is their rally. It is their narrative. And I will say this to the community, and I'll be done. I'm not gonna say too much. I'm still falling asleep. I'm making myself fall asleep.
Don't seem to be.
I am, believe me. I will say this to the community. To be so proud of this generation of young people that are coming along, we can say so many negative things about young people. Every generation that comes before has had something negative to say about the next generation of young people. But I will say this, for whatever negative you had, the positives far outweigh whatever negative you can say. This generation of young people are enlightened. This generation of young people are intelligent, smart, and I literally believe that they stand now at a particular point in time in which they can really affect change in the world. I said this to them as I was talking to them the other day, and I said it to Mr. Crescenzo the other day, that the greatest enemy of destiny is apathy. And I thank God that we do not have an apathetic group of young people, especially here in the city of Middletown. And so this is their protest. They're the ones that have stood up. And so I dare any adult or any naysayer to steal their narrative. This is their narrative. And we must support the narrative that they have created in order for their destiny to be assured. It's our job to assure that their destiny is completed. It's our job to support them, and our job to push them, and which is the mission that we have here in this district, but which is the mission that we as adults should carry every day with us. So remember that is March 24th, the National March for Our Lives, Middletown, and I encourage everyone that's watching, anyone that will hear, anyone that's here, to please encourage anybody and everybody to come out and participate so that the voice will be heard. Our voices will be heard. We have the right, we have the ability to make change, but we've got to be heard. Thank you.
You did very well, Bishop.
Thank you.
My heavens. You don't seem to be falling asleep. You seem to be re-energized. I guess that Mountain Dew did it.
Tap me in 2 minutes.
There you go. Well, I'll try to be brief. I attended many of the programs that Bishop Williams and Mr. Crescenzo attended. Coming up this weekend is a magnificent performance, Shrek, Middletown High School, and that's going on the screen right now. Friday, 7 p.m., Saturday, 2 and 7 p.m., and I might add that the performers gave a snippet of what was going to happen at the Senior Citizen Center on Mulberry Street today, Mulberry House. Excellent. Great job. Greg Bennett was there. Jim Schofield, I spoke with him early this morning. He was still involved in doing the sets. And Cindy Parisi was there at Mulberry House. And let me tell you, the seniors were extremely impressed with the performance. So I encourage anyone watching, anyone in the audience, to try to attend that performance, one of the performances. So continuing on here, there's a number of programs that are going on during the spring break, and before I go on and talk about them, I want to wish everybody a very pleasant and restful spring break, and for those celebrating Easter, happy Easter. And for those celebrating Passover, good Pesach. Did I get that right? Pretty close. Okay. Good enough. Just a couple of shout-outs. I want to compliment, and Mr. Scott is here tonight, I want to compliment the buildings and grounds and our custodial staff for in dealing with all the inclement weather we've had. These guys and gals are here 5 o'clock in the morning, and they work and work until it's done. They have to leave their houses in the worst type of weather to clean our parking lots, to clean our sidewalks, and in the 3-hour delays to get ready, the 2-hour delays, and even on the worst possible snow days. So nice job, Tom, and nice job, your staff. I had written a letter to the staff on behalf of the board. Continuing on, in that same vein, a shout out to Mid-City Transit, the drivers. They have a tough job driving a bus. I really wouldn't like to do that. They have to contend with so many factors, and they have to contend with the inclement weather also when we have the delays, even though the streets are passable. So nice job to those people also. I want to recognize Bill Wilcox tonight. He did a tremendous job in printing up the senior passes, and they appreciated that at Marbury House. And also the recognition certificates for the Elks Pancake Breakfast. Karen Sissel and her staff. Karen is the coordinator of media services. They did a fine job taking the lead in the February Black History celebration. Every single school had either readings or worked in collaboration with staff members or displays. So good job to that group. I'm going to start what I call the 30 and over club. And that club is for people who are retiring with 30 or more years of service, or pretty close to it. Two people. Judy Sustak, the office manager of Twin Towers. Judy seldom takes a sick day. She's there very early in the morning. When you call up, and I have a bad habit, I call early in the morning around 7:05, and it's always Twin Towers Middle School, Judy speaking. So she's very pleasant on the phone. You know, office managers, a very significant part in the running of the school buildings. They're about the first person who you see when you walk into the office. They know the procedures. They have the procedures down pat. They do a tremendous amount of paperwork. In the case of Judy, she worked with a number of principals. And I want to say she broke in a number of principals, including Dominic Leone, Tom Buckite, Gordon Dean, Lynn Moore, and I know there were a couple of others too, but she's been always there. The other person retiring after many years of service, over 30, Kathy Smith. Now, Kathy worked in our media centers. She's currently involved in the high school media center. She also worked in the tech department. Just a wonderful person. All the children like Kathy as they did Judy, and I want to wish them the very best. You covered Mr. Crescenzo very well, the NJOTC performance, also the Key Club Pancake Breakfast. I want to thank the Builders Club. I want to thank NJOTC and the Key Club, because they played a very important role in seeing that the people got fed, picking up the tables, and so on. So, as a matter of fact, today, when I was out, I was actually to the visitation of Mr. Monaco, Mr. Martell. I happened to see Barbara Schumar there. She came up to me and complimented the district for all the help that we have given them. Paula covered very nicely the program with Sean Patrick Maloney. I thought it was an excellent program. And the final shout out goes to Kevin Witt tonight. Please check out our website. It's really it's every year and every so often it gets better and better and better. You did a nice job, and it's very easy to navigate that. I can even do it. So thank you so much, Kevin. And finally, before a break, the Russ and Bill and Mike, who put up with us tonight, and Mark Brownstone's over there in the corner, and you're here until we end, and hopefully we'll be fairly brief. So that's all I have, and let's go to our personnel items. We have 19A, B, and C. May I have a motion to approve all of these together?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And now we have, I think we have some recognitions, Mr. DelMoro, this evening?
Yes, we do have, I'm going to go, yes, we do have a person here to be recognized this evening. It was appointed last board meeting, but she's here this evening because she was unable to come. And I'm going to kick this over to Mrs. Creedon to introduce our newest psychologist in the district, starting right after the spring break.
Good evening. It is with great pleasure that we welcome Amaris this evening. Ms. Marconi, Ms. Tagney, and Ms. Kuntz are here this evening to welcome her officially. So come on up.
Good evening. We're very excited to bring Amaris on board. She's going to be taking over our out-of-district student caseload and comes to us with a lot of experience working with at-risk students. In particular, her knowledge of Orange County Community Resources was one of the biggest things that drew us to her. So we're very excited to have her join the team.
I would like to thank all the board members for granting me this opportunity, and I'm really, really excited to join the Middletown team.
We're excited to
Thank
We're excited.
you.
Welcome. Excited to have you.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
That's all we have. That's all.
I believe that's all of the recognitions this evening. Thank you so much for putting up with us and for being here, and have a good evening and have a good break.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
You know, I have to retreat a bit. Opportunity to address the board? Anyone?
I don't think so.
Once,
Wait a
twice,
minute.
sure,
Wait a
once?
minute. Is something we said or goodbye?
Now, Mr. Tuttle, you're on with a superintendent's report.
Yeah, I guess it's a little different than last week. So tonight we continue our budget conversation, looking at the 2018-19 proposed revenue for Middletown City Schools. So as always, we just go over our assumptions, looking at what we know is the inflation rate, right around 2%. Our TRS bill is usually 11%. Our employee retirement system, the increase is usually about 16.5%. BOCES services up 5%. Our health insurance, which is always it's very interesting for us right now because as we're waiting for the legislators to help us with the reserve. And then, as we know right now, our foundation aid is up 3% from last year, and our community schools is increased by 39.7%. So just a little thing about the community schools, it's all derived based on your ENL learner population. So it's that keeps increasing, and then the aid keeps increasing for us as well. So just a quick overview of what makes up the revenue. This equals 100%. There we go. So if you see the state aids, roughly 51% of our revenue. Local taxes, roughly 47%. And other revenue is right around 2%. And then we'll go over what's in each, inside of each of those. We'll go through here. So for this year, in January, the governor has they do a state aid run. And this is really just for informational purposes to give you a ballpark of where you're going to be. And again, nothing is final until the state passes a budget, hopefully in April. The sooner the better, and then we can make better decisions on where we can actually end up with a budget. So for this year, we were actually, as I said, we're 3% increase over last year. So it's almost a $3.9 million increase in state aid. The basic formula inside there is construction, transportation, and some other high excess costs from special education and things like that. The thing that's up a little bit for us is our construction aid. Transportation aid remains right around 90%, which is very good for us. You'll see our BOCES aid is up. That's primarily the more you spend with BOCES, the more you get back the next year. We spent a lot of money on technology last year through BOCES and a lot of services through them. And I was just reading an article that came out. The governor's looking to cap state aid on BOCES and transportation, and so it's going to be another way to put another 2% tax cap on us silently. And then our textbook, software, library, and hardware aid is up a little bit for this year based on enrollment. So you'll see about 3.9% state aid. Last year, once the legislators passed the budget and the governor, we did pretty well. We got almost another $1.5 million from the governor, so that was pretty good from that perspective. Here's some of our other revenues that we look at and how we can build the budget. You'll see a big increase in our, the biggest one for us right now, well, we'll look at the pilots, which is the payment in lieu of taxes. So we get a lot of those. We used to have the Galleria on there, so that dropped significantly. But we're up about $90,000 from last year. And so that's there. The other big one for us is a refund of prior years. That's up quite a bit. Essentially, what's happening with BOCES is we expend money, and then we usually end up getting a check back from them after they do all the calculations and everything. And it's usually a little bit over $1 million. So we can use that money to offset some of the expenses next year. In the retirement reserve, the auditor deemed that we should not have that $500,000 there as a revenue. So that's why I removed it. And that's what it was, overstating our budget by $500,000. We do the interfund transfer, $190,000. That's we keep that there primarily just to take it from our debt reserve and pay some of our debt down. And then NJROTC, that's the federal government that helps offset the salaries for the NJROTC officers. So the other revenues are up about $310,000. And then this is what everyone really likes. So the tax levy, right now, the maximum that we can actually go out to the public is 2.73% from last year, which is a little bit over $2 million to the levy. So if you look at what the total levy would be, $76,518,805. And we put the STAR in there because there's the STAR relief program. You get paid by the state. So, but that is our maximum, and I'll go over a little bit more once we get a little deeper here. And for those that you like to see the tax cap calculation, how we get to 2.73%, we take last year's budget, and the things that we weighed on from the commissioner is, what is the tax growth going to be? That's at 1.0156, and that fluctuates a little bit every year, and that tells you how much you can grow on from your budget from last year. We have our pilots we put in there. We have and then what we're going to expend on our tax for capital projects. So we have significant money just for the debt service right there, $6.5 million. And then it keeps going on, the growth factor in the area. And then we have the current pilots, and then there's the commissioners. Let's see, which one is it? Oh, so then we get a different number, and then we put our new capital, what we're going to expend next year. So up above is what we're spending last year, and then what we're spending next year. And that gives us the 2.73%, or the $2,035,056 is our maximum that we can go to the public with. Now I say maximum because you can go less, but I caution if we go, we have to look at it, because then you can't generate enough revenue next year if we ever needed to. But we can look at that over the next couple of weeks. And then here we have some additional instructional budget requests. We need looking at 3 additional buses. This would be a district-wide due to increased enrollment. And that cost, we actually get 90% state aid on that cost, so that would be very helpful there. Looking at a math coordinator, K through 12. Curriculum support, right now currently we have a literacy coordinator, and it's really kind of unbalanced for the math. So math coordinator would be very helpful in that realm. A high school psychologist, 1.5 physical education teachers. The high school is in need of another education teacher. and Twin Towers is in need of a 0.5. Looking at a technology teacher at the high school, two special education teachers at the high school due to enrollment in courses. The courses, the actual need is there for 2 more teachers, another music teacher at the high school. And then looking at clubs district-wide, this is increased student engagement. So the students are in the schools are looking for after-school activities for the students to participate in something. Over at Maple Hill, we have a drama club. In the high school, we have several clubs. And the middle schools have them. So this would kind of equal out a club for maybe each building to get kids more engaged after school, and helps the staff get engaged as well. That's the instructional requests. Here's our actual non-instructional budget request. Looking at more security aides at the high school, a clerical at the front main office at the high school. Right now, there's a half-time person there, and what they do, they bring people from other areas down to help at the window, and then when somebody moves down there, they're not getting their job done in their actual position. In technology, looking for a 0.5 as well. We currently have a 0.5 person. I'd like to make that a full-time person. Part-time, 3 part-time cleaners. This would be district-wide due to increased meal service throughout the day. And then 1 additional utility tradesman. This would be a district-wide. As our facilities become more enhanced, looking for more upgraded skill labor. So if we combine those two, whoops, went too fast. And then we take our previous budgets. We had the administrative, we had the program, the capital, and then we talked about benefits. With our additional request, we're looking at a proposed budget of $188,562,290, which would be a 5.04% increase over last year's. This is the actual revenue sheet I handed out to you. If you look at your last page, you'll see in here it shows the state aid on the top portion, shows our other revenues that we talked about, and our real property taxes. Again, the real property taxes is the maximum, okay? If we want to look at reducing that, we can once we get some different numbers and different revenue streams. We also have the fund balance maintained at $5,299,227. That's been steady over the past 4 or 5 years. So right now, to get to our proposed budget, we have a budget shortage of $2,872,528. So, what we talked about was that shortage can be made up with other revenues. Hopefully the state aid and foundation aid will come a little bit higher, things like that. So here's our overview. The proposed budget, $188,562,290. We're short the $2,872,528. The budget increase from last year, a little bit over $9 million. So giving us a budget increase of 5.04% over last year. Our tax levy increase would be $2,035,058. That's the maximum we can go. We can always go less. Maximum levy amount, $76,518,805. And then the maximum tax cap is 2.73%. So there's never really a 2% cap by the time they do all the formulas. Just a couple things to keep in mind. The contingent budget rules, if the budget were to go down, the first budget, for under the cap, we just need 50% plus 1. For over the cap, we need 60% plus 1. I don't think we'll be over the cap, and so we should just need the 50% plus 1. If we need to go to a second vote, same numbers, and then the contingent, same levy as prior year. So if the budget goes down twice, we can go to the same budget as we had last year with no equipment or those types of things that are inside of there. So things to consider before the final budget. So the next meeting, April 5th, is our public input on the budget. Hopefully by then, over break, we'll have a state budget, and then we can really hone in on what it is that our budget revenues will look like. As I said, we already have state aid at 3%, which is a very good increase. Things that we're looking at now is our lottery aid. We're looking at the trends of that, looking at using some of our reserves, the tax cap, In our health plan, that continues to be, although it's a continual conversation, it's one of those things that could really help us if we can get this reserve passed by the state and help our general fund budget. And then the other things we'll have is capital projects, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So as we talked about the budget calendar, April 5th, public input. April 19th is the board must adopt the budget. We'll have a budget hearing on May 3rd, and then on Tuesday, May 15th, will be the budget election vote. And then on the 16th, we'll hopefully approve the budget. Does anybody have any questions?
I think I'll go around
Okay.
once, and Mike, as you mentioned, this is preliminary right now.
Absolutely
We don't know the
preliminary.
state aid runs.
That's correct. It's the best guesses that we have right now.
Okay, it's the best guesstimate.
Yep.
Okay, well, why don't we start, Mr. Gomez is chatting at the bit here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Tuttle, for your presentation. Always excellent, as always. I do have a couple of questions. First, I want to turn to the chart, what makes up revenue for Middletown. There is the little red box at the top that's other revenue.
Yeah.
I might have missed it, but can you maybe give us a breakdown, what constitutes that other revenue?
Right, so if you look at the next page, there's a proposed other revenues. And in there, that has all the pilots, the payment in lieu of taxes. It has the refund of prior year expenses, utility tax, monies that we receive, interest and penalties. We charge for services like we rent out Truman Moon, so we get rental money for that. If you look at the list, you'll see them all right there.
Okay.
Right,
That's
so we
on
have,
page. That's on page.
this is the next
Three.
page on
Page
your.
three, okay.
Yeah, that makes up that revenue.
Okay. Now, I have a question. I'm looking at going back to the same chart. Look, local tax, they almost split. Local tax is 47%, state aid 51%. Now, it's fair to say that the portion of the budget that funds the unfunded mandates, it's more the yellow one, right?
The unfunded, yes, that's correct.
So our taxpayers in our district, thanks to our friends in Albany, are bearing the burden of the unfunded mandates.
You could look at it that way, but if you receive revenue from state aid, you can use some of that money to pay
offset
for the unfunded.
it.
Yeah, so that's what their argument is. We're giving you foundation aid to do this. You know, how do you want to spend it in your program?
But at the end of the day, if you follow that logic, it's fair to say it's kind of restricting the flexibility of the district
Yes.
to be able to decide how we could best use these funds and resources.
If you
and
remember,
the taxpayers bear the burden.
right? If you remember when they implemented the foundation aid formula, right now we're owed over $50 million based on that calculation.
Okay.
Over the years.
Now,
I would just like to add that because what Mr. Tuttle said is accurate, they may say that, they're not giving us additional money
Right.
for any other new unfunded mandates
Yeah.
that they levy on the school districts. In other words, the additional aid that you receive is to offset the increases that for enrollment, the student increases, for utility bills, for instructional programming, salaries. All of these are increases that normally occur from year to year. And so understanding of that, that's where you receive those aids. True enough, you can put some of that money, if you choose to an unfunded mandate, but as they keep adding those unfunded, they're not increasing commensurately with their increased rate to those unfunded mandates. And I think that's important to realize.
so the state's not passing the buck, it's passing the burden.
Well, if you heard what I was saying before, they're looking at capping the aid on BOCES and transportation, and that would really hurt us badly if that happened.
An additional burden.
Yeah.
Now,
So we rely heavily on the aid.
now, on the proposed state aid, and by that you're referring to what's the talk so far, what Albany is proposing to allocate for our district, correct?
Yes.
Okay. At this point, okay, is there any allocation with respect to school security that's specifically earmarked?
No, the only thing that they have is you can purchase security cameras and some security apparatuses, and then you get aid on it next year. So that would be, it's like you need to come up with the money now, spend it, and then report it, and then you get aid in the next year.
So at this point, March 13, 2018, or March 15, sorry.
Right.
New York State has not decided that we're going to earmark this amount of resources for the school districts for school security, not to be touched by any kind of budget.
No, we have not seen anything of that.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And that may become over the next 2 weeks or so when they get
Okay.
really down and
All right. So
dirty with the budget.
there might be changes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. I'm turning to page 4, the tax cap calculation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, forgive me if I missed it. When you total the tax levy increases, for the 2017-2018 was 3.151%.
That was 3.151%. That's always the maximum you can go.
Okay.
We weren't at that high. I think we were, I got 2.96, I think was last year.
So this year's 2.73, which is less.
That's the maximum. Okay,
Maximum.
that's not what, we're probably not going to use that number.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know, that's the maximum revenue we could receive if we never received any more state aid, we didn't have reserves, we didn't have anything, other revenues coming in.
But because we have reserves, we don't have to worry about that.
Well,
And to
it's
some
going to be up to the
extent.
board to decide how you want to.
Okay. All right then. And let's see. You mentioned the increase in school buses because of a growing population. And I think I've asked this question previously, but in other occasions. Is this because of in part the development or other factors like migration from the Caribbean because of the hurricane?
I don't know why. I just know that we have more students needing to ride. And there's certain areas in Middletown that have more housing and that the buses can handle, right? So we're looking at tiering the buses. So we have 2 buses going to a certain location to handle the student population to those specific locations.
And the reason I bring that up, I know that I saw the other day one of the school buses entering one of the new developments that just opened on those on Country Route 78.
Yep.
So,
The thing is, we don't know how many students, if we had that crystal ball, we'd be
we
great.
don't know
We'd
yet.
be good,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And then my final question is, okay. I went with respect to things to consider before the final budget.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see this at this point, the fund balance assisting us in terms of expenses, some here in the proposal?
Well, if you saw some of it, we already have allocated $5.2 million to offset some of the increases.
Okay.
It's really hard to say what we're going to do with that because if the state aid comes back very generous, obviously we would use that, versus the reserves. But we do have it. We do have some of the fund balance to help us offset the budget.
Okay.
But we're also, in my next presentation, I'm going to show you some things that we'd like to do with the fund balance as well. Some enhancements.
And I think it's important that that's pointed out in case anybody out there in TV land or internet land questions or doubts that our school district not only uses conservative budgeting to ensure that our students' needs and interests and our infrastructure are funded properly and wisely, but at the same time, we also want to make sure that money is not wasted, and we have that reserve for any future needs.
Correct.
When we're no longer in the 7 years of plenty, when we're in the years of where there may be scarcity in funds, but we'll be ready to protect ourselves and our school district's interests. Thank you so much. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez, for those incisive and elaborate comments. Ms. Blumenau.
Mr. Gomez addressed some of my questions. I don't really have any questions specifically on the budget. What I see here, this is my 6th budget season, so I'm starting to
You're seasoned
understand
now.
it. No,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
My question is, where community schools?
Right.
Where does that fit into our budget?
It fits in there as a revenue for us.
And where?
Yeah, I don't have it specifically outlined in here.
It's not, is
yeah.
it in one of the
Um,
lines?
Let's see, that's a good question.
'Cause I see-
I had it in the, when I did the instructional component, it was
Yes.
in there as a expense. As a community aligned school, so we have 1.5 million, 1.4 million in there,
Expense. But the
right.
monies for it are coming from
Right, so it would offset that, yeah.
where?
It would come from the state.
Right,
As part of
okay.
the state aid, yeah, the foundation aid, yeah.
So that means that certain, I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
Certain jobs that are
Yes.
being added are not reflected here in the additional instructional or additional non-instructional, but are being addressed.
Right, so
As
in the
part of the
foundation
community
aid, calculate that the community schools is embedded in there as a revenue. So we already have, over the past, I think, 2 years now, or 3, we have crisis interventionists in there, we have school psychologists, we have the dean.
Right.
We're already paying for a lot of those services now. We just approved, the last meeting or 2 ago, the dean for this building, so that's coming out of community schools. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm bringing it up. Is there any additional, are there any proposed additions to the community schools for next year, for
Well,
next year's budget?
yeah, the one that would be in here would probably be the psychologist.
Just the
Yeah,
psychologist?
that's all probably we have room for, based on, we've already done some of with the admin work and
Okay.
things like that.
If I may add to Mrs. Blumenau's question, to provide some additional potential programs we're looking at. In working with the high school administration over the last month or so, we've been looking at what support services in terms of mental health issues, therapeutic type of services for children that we've been talking about to offset some of the needs at the high school, and not only at the high school, but all of our schools. We're looking at Orange County Support Services, we're looking at Mental Health Department, ADEX. We are having meetings with all of those representatives, so there could be, based upon the services that they're willing to render to us, those type of personnel or supports that may cost us money, which would come out of that, because it fits that category of what you are very parochially can use for community school money.
Right, and that's, I think, just in the climate right now that we're all kind of immersed in looking at that in looking at school psychologists and
Additional crisis interventionists.
Additional.
Those type of positions would be looked at after we evaluate all of that, as we're doing right now, in terms of what would be immediate for the schools to receive, because the needs is such. We've been dealing with those organizations. We've had several meetings with them, and also with our administrative teams, based upon what teachers are indicating a need.
Thank you, that's all I have. Thank you so much, Mike.
You're welcome.
Mr. Cosenzo.
Thank you. Just a couple of maybe frivolous questions, I don't know. It's interesting to see the lottery aid on there, because people ask me, where does all that money go? And how do they determine how much money we're going to get?
That's a good question. So it's based on your enrollment, it's based on your need, it's based on, so basically why I separated it is because they offset our textbook aid and all that stuff with the lottery aid. So over the past couple of years, it's been increasing for us. So I don't know if more people are spending money on lottery or what's going on, but so we're going to actually look at the revenue streams over the past couple of years and see if that'll help us offset our budget as well.
Just curious, would you know how much money goes into the state from the lottery?
No, I don't know that.
No, it's probably
I'm sure we could look it up real quick.
It's got to be a pretty big chunk.
gotta be
With
billions.
700 districts, and we're getting 7 million.
Yeah.
On the tax cap calculation with the maximum tax cap, would it be beneficial to reference or put the word maximum in there? So if somebody looked at this,
I could do that, yeah.
they wouldn't think that this would not be an end point, but it could be in the middle, or know.
Yeah, I was trying to emphasize that in the other slides, but I can put it right there too.
Yeah. And the instructional budget requests, the buses, that $201,000, is that before or after the state aid?
That's before. So
Okay.
we would receive 90% back on that.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
good, okay. Thank you,
Yep.
that's it.
Bishop Williams?
I think that Mr. Gomez pretty much covered the questions that I had. don't think I'm going to add anything else. I'm going to take time to look at it a little bit closer, and maybe and come and sit down with you and have a chat if I see anything that stands out at me. But for the most part, Mr. Gomez and Ms. Blumenau kind of hit on the area that I was thinking on, because especially with community schools, I kind of thought about that, because I know there are the needs of school psychologists and those mental health issues. Those right now in this particular climate in our nation are areas that are extremely important, and we have to address those as we go forward, regardless of whatever other issues we have. So that was good. That helped me a lot. So I'll take another look at it and see where we go. Thank you, Swain.
Yeah. Just as a side note, we do monitor the community schools budget very often, just because we know this year, like we had a situation where we were short crisis interventionists because of the civil service. We're hampered by civil service, so we actually had some extra funds in the account. That's why we went ahead and asked for a dean for this building. So that's why we're trying to always expedite services and get them into the district. So we watch that, we monitor it all the time.
Just as a point to in the additional instructional budget requests, I already have a good idea, but the math coordinator, K through 12, curriculum support. Now, if my understanding is right, that's a position that's similar to what we have for literacy.
Correct.
Something that we haven't had in this district, but is actually pretty much needed because we don't have that support.
Correct.
On the math end of things.
Yeah, you don't have the continuity between the different grade level buildings. It's probably one of the things that we would really need.
I think that's an important piece in order for us to maintain our academic goals and our academic achievements. Math, whether people realize it or not, math can tend to be a pretty difficult area to navigate, and I think this would provide some great support. So that's good. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Thanks, Mike. Very clear and concise presentation, and hopefully with this 2.73, with the additional state aid, which we perhaps will get, maybe you can work this figure down.
Yep.
And using some of the fund balance, and that's what people have to realize. Hopefully they do, as Mr. Gomez started to point out. This is one of the ways we've used this fund balance for the last how many years? 5 years?
I think it's longer than that.
More than 5 years.
You've been using the same amount for 5 years. You've been using it. Yeah.
I mean, we always put at least 5.2, and maybe we'll put more in this year.
Okay.
The reason that my taxes go up and everything goes up, unfortunately, no one likes to pay taxes. But gas goes up, all the other utility bills go up, supplies go up, transportation costs go up. So, this is some of the reasons. Contracts, instructional contracts, non-instructional, and so on. So this is a very complex situation with the on budgeting. Could you just, for the viewing audience, we understand it, but just in a couple sentences, community schools. I don't know if people understand this.
Okay, so the community schools, I think it was 3 years ago, the legislator, the governor came up with this program for community schools, and it's really based on the English language learners in your district and how many you have, and we keep growing, and that's why you've seen our aid keep going higher and higher. But you have to, it's really a program to help students at risk, to give them some help in whatever capacity we can do that. We're using crisis interventionists, psychologists, deans in the high school at risk, really monitoring the students that could potentially be at risk and need some help getting through the system and getting the right support that they really need.
Thank you very much, and you're moving
I have a
on
question
to the
about
second.
community school.
Vince?
Does any of that money go into directly into instruction?
No, it's not really geared for instruction, although we can use probably a little bit of portion of it at the high school when we're looking at our after-school program, looking to develop, getting the students in there if they're at risk and getting them to some extra help academically. But you say instructionally, there's not really for teachers per se, but we do have the administrators that are there to help support the instruction and make sure that those mechanisms are moving along.
Mike, would you like to take a break, or do you want to go on to the second
No, I'll go.
part of your
I'm here.
presentation?
I'm here. Don't let me sit down.
Paula, do you have something else? Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the next thing we'd like to talk about are some Middletown capital projects and have them be approved in the budget in May. Two projects that we're looking at right now is the high school library media center reconfiguration. This would allow us to really modernize the library and the media center, reconfigure, bringing the career and college center to the forefront of the library, so when parents and students can get to it more easily. Right now, it's in the back of the library. And the second thing we're looking at is the stadium complex enhancements. There's three things in there that we'd like to look at for voter approval. So first, let's talk about the high school media library center. Right now, we're looking at putting in 8 spaces for the learning spaces. Now, if you've been in the third floor at the high school, there's those 3 labs or window or collaborative spaces, I guess we'll call them. That's what those spaces are when we refer to spaces. So it'd be more of those down in the library area, so students can come, work independently, work as a team, and as our focus is on collaboration and really getting the students to really get more involved in that. So in the learning space, we'll be looking at redesigning the bookshelves and the furniture in the space. And I spoke about relocating the College and Career Center, so it'll be closer to the front. So when you look at the library and media center now, there's to the right, there's the glass windows. So in there, we put the College and Career Center, and it makes it a lot easier for parents when they're coming in to get into the center. And it will also be creating some office and conference space in the center as well. I do have a picture of it, although it's not really a great one. You can kind of see along the edge, and if you look on your picture, you can see on the right side and the left side, you'll see some collaborative spaces kind of outlined and boxed in. This is like the preliminary design that we looked at with them. In the back of the library, when we move the college and career to the front, we would actually create like a independent station for teachers to learn how to use collaborative learning, a little conference center for teachers and staff. Maybe administrators go in there and work on some of those things as well. And back of that, as things always change, we're looking at putting a TV production studio in there as well. So this drawing is just a little bit outdated. I'm going to have the architects update it for us before the next meeting, just with the TV production studio in mind as well. So if you can take a look at it, it's really redesigning the library, putting a little bit more independent seating in there for independent learning. Students can come in and sit down, read a magazine, go on their Chromebooks and do what they need to do. And then they can also have the opportunity to go into the collaborative spaces to work on their projects as well. When we visited Indiana University, that was a year and a half ago, I think, it was amazing walking around the media center how many students were actually in these collaborative learning spaces. And talking to a couple students, they said they have to get there very early in the morning just to get a space because no one ever they don't leave. So it was kind of interesting. And we're really trying to gear the high school to help the students be college and career ready when they go into the workforce. I actually had some industry professionals in here the other day from Cisco who does all of our networking products, and they were blown away by how we are ready for students to be ready for their career with our A+ certifications and stuff. But so this is one of the projects we're looking at redesigning the front of the library as well, making some glass doors. If you recall, walking into the library, in the front of it, it's all concrete partitions and flower beds and things like that. So we're looking at removing that and putting some glass there. Just making it a little bit more friendly looking, not institutional looking when you walk into there. And on the left-hand side, you'll see that on the top, the windows, and then the second one down, you see how the seating would be, and then how the bookshelves will be realigned at the bottom. Really just, keeping all the same content in there, but shifting it around and making it a little bit more, I would say, user-friendly. When we first designed the library back in 2006, I remember we bought the tables for all these computers. We used to have 70 computers in the library, and now we don't have any. So we need to redesign the space a little bit better, and may entice students to get in there and really want to do some stuff. So that's the library configuration. Like I said, I'll have the architects redesign a little bit and maybe enhance it with some colors, maybe. So the next project we're looking at is the stadium complex enhancements. Some of the things that we do at the stadium, obviously we have high school graduation. We have the Orange Classic that runs there, and they use that once a year. Elementary field days we host there. Middletown and regional level sports. We have a lot of football games there. Boys and girls soccer, boys and girls lacrosse, track and field. And then when we get into the state and regional finals, obviously we have the host of the boys state soccer championships. We've hosted 2 years the boys lacrosse. We've hosted the track and field for 1 year. That's coming up again in 2019. And then the football right now is a bid out for that to host the regionals and possibly states. That's what Dave Coates was explaining to me. And with the football, we're already hosting the sectionals and the first round of regionals. And then there would be a third round of playoffs that would be hosted here. Now, what's interesting to note about that, that's always been at Kingston ever since I remember. The football, and that was the game before they went to the Syracuse Dome, right? So what's happened now, Kingston has failed to maintain their facilities. The turf is old, it's outdated, and they've lost their bid to host. So that's why we have a bid in, and we feel pretty confident that we're going to get that championship game here. So here's some of the things that we've hosted. Football, since 2009, we've had Section 9 here. The semifinals, 2017 and 18. And then, as I was explaining, we're looking at a bid for 2019 to 21 to host the finals. So that'd be a pretty big paradigm shift for us. The soccer's been here, Section 9, 2009 to 17. And then we've had the regionals here. We've had the state semifinals, and we actually had the finals here. Lacrosse, 2010 to 2017, same Section 9. And then 2010 to 17, we've had regionals. We've had the state semifinals, 2011 and 15. And then the New York State finals, 2012 and 16. So and then track and field, same. We're hosting a lot of sectional meets. Generates a lot of people coming in and out of Middletown. So sectionals 2009 to 17. The regionals, again, 2009 to 17. And then the finals was 2013, and we're hosting again in 2019. So you can see the field is utilized quite extensively since 2009. Some of the numbers that we have preliminary, this is an estimated total based on the number of events. Now, when I say boys soccer, so we host the Section 9, we host the semifinals, we host finals. So every time there's an event, all this different revenue is generated. So it's estimated at over $11 million has an economic impact to the community. So that's gas stations, that's hotels, that's food, it's tolls, it's everything that would involve travel. It's people getting paid, referees, it's different, all those things that would do have an economic impact on the community. So what we're looking to do with the Library Media Center and the stadium improvements, Again, this is a zero cost for property owners, and we'll be using fund balance. We have the resurfacing of the track, which is all the things at the stadium have been there since 2008. So we're looking at a 10-year-old track that just needs to be reconditioned, resurfaced. We're looking at replacing the video board, replacing the turf as well, and then looking at the library remodeling as well. So for $4,175,000, we'll be looking to have the voters approve this during the budget. Just to talk a little bit about the track, it's a nationally certified track, so when students run on there, they actually have, those are actual times that can be used for records and things like that. And they also have the RFID chip. The students, when they run, they can actually get the digital times as well. The video board, that's something that we've actually kind of installed one of them in the high school gym. And the goal there is to help the students in their digital media courses learn how to take digital content that's on a computer or whatever they're making it on and be able to display it and use it in the real world for commercialing and marketing and those types of things. And then the thing with that is the students can work the games and they learn how to do a live production with TVs and cameras and video boards and et cetera. The replacing of the turf, that's going to be needed pretty soon. We just had the FIFA recertification, but we did not get the highest level. So that what that means is the turf is starting to deteriorate, and we're looking at replacing that as well. Those three things, we've actually been, the track resurfacing, Dave Coates has been working on that probably for 6 to 8 months, talking to me and Tom and talking to vendors. The video board, we've had continuous problems over there. Essentially, anytime we go to run a big event, we're calling the vendor and he has to come down usually the night before to get it up and running. He's replacing parts and it's becoming very old and antiquated to maintain. And we talked about the turf. Actually, Dave Coates and I went last June. We started this process looking at video boards because we knew we needed to replace it. Talking to the vendor back in June. And then the turf as well. Dave Coates has been to several conferences where he's learned about the turf. We've actually had the turf, a couple different companies come in and show us different products that would help us replace that turf. It's amazing how many things there are to know about turf. I didn't realize that. It is. And it depends on the climate, how much rain you get, how cold it is, how much wind, what kind of material you want to put down. And then, of course, the library, that was done in 2006. So we're looking at 12 years old, so looking at a facelift there and making it more college and career ready for the students. Any questions?
Okay, I'm starting.
He's going.
The library media center,
Yep.
when this is approved and the work finally starts, how will that impact on the high school? How long will it take to do that project?
That's a good question. So it'll probably take us a good part of a summer and probably a little bit into, depending on when you start. So it always depends on what kind of shifts you get in there. And usually in the summer is the best time for us. And the reason why we try to do voting now is so we can get all the state aid and all those types of approvals done in a timely manner. They're backed up right now, so you always want to have all that completed by January so you can do the bids, January, February, and then you get the best workforce moving forward.
So it wouldn't be this summer?
No.
It would be the following summer?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So we have to submit the plans to the state ed and get all
Right,
the-
yeah, it's a big complicated
Yeah.
procedure.
Complicated, yeah.
Yeah. So library, books, do
Yeah.
we still buy books, or is it all
We
digital?
do, but not a lot of them. We buy more digital content. We buy ebooks. We buy things like that. The students are coming in. They have their Chromebooks. They're looking up information on the internet.
Yeah.
If I may give a little more specific
You
information to
might have
that.
more detail, yeah.
I know that Mrs. Tobiasen always asks me about this when we discussed about this issue. There will be a loss of about 25% of the print books because of the vast increase in digital content, digital books. But We surveyed other school districts around the country regarding this renovation, and they also lost about 25%. Some of the books are outdated. For example, inside that 25%, the encyclopedias, well, we don't even use those anymore. So that space is no longer needed where you're having the collaborative spaces in lieu of. Some of the shelving will be lowered, as you can see in, well, you really can't see very well at this particular illustration, but you'll see that the stacks there are lower, not as high as they used to be, and that's where you have the little loss of 25%. But it will certainly not be 25% of loss of access to information for students as they use their Chromebooks. As he mentioned, there's about 75 desktops in there that are no longer in there because the kids all have Chromebooks and they access the information that way. But there still will be books purchased. We'll still be reading Romeo and Juliet, students, Merchant of Venice, etc.
Right. In addition to that, Karen Kissel, the library coordinator, has actually requested more databases and more references for next year, so the kids can access them essentially wherever they are on the internet.
I remember it wasn't an in-depth discussion, but we talked about the lobby and the walls with the glass brick. Is that going to be anything?
Yeah, we actually the board approved the work of that. I think a few months ago. Tom is opening the bids tomorrow, right, to see if we can do that now to get the work done, for this summer, and then it will be that piece. The front piece will be done ahead of time, and we actually have the money from Aileen Gunther to help us offset those costs.
Professional library, have we had that before, or is this a new concept?
The professional library?
Yeah, the professional library in the back.
Right, so that's for I think that's for. Go ahead, Richard.
No, we've had that in all the libraries, and we continue to have it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's nice. That's interesting.
For their resources, their materials, they're in all the libraries,
Okay.
elementary, middle, and high school.
Great. The baseball fields, anything with them? Are they doing well, or do they need any repair?
No, I think they're doing well. If you ever go over to the varsity field, the grass is very plush, very playable, and the outfield, they use it for the state soccer tournament every year, right? So they have it on the backside of the turf there.
Okay.
Well, don't get me wrong, Dave would love to turf the whole thing, so, I mean, that's, so.
I remember the discussion
Yeah.
when we started to plan the new facility about the turf. I mean, you think of turf, I know the artificial turf was ruled out immediately because of the stress on the
Right.
ankles and knees and what have you. But they had different people come in to talk, present their product, and it's quite a science.
It is.
With
It's
the
amazing.
drainage and the beads and things in there. It's just amazing.
See, the good thing for us is we already have the infrastructure, right? So now our decision is, do we put foam under it? Do we, what type of material and what type of cushion do we put on there for the players and things? So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, so that was my next question, so you answered it, because I know that was an expensive part of the deal, the irrigation and what have you.
Mhm.
Good.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have one question. Oh, thank you. Again, thank you, Mr. Tuttle, for your report on the different championships and economic impacts for our community. I always say when it comes to small town America, you're going to see its heart and soul. Either you could go to the house of worship, you could also go as well to the school districts and the different sports activities. You don't have to go to Yankee Stadium or Shea Stadium if you can't afford it. There's a lot going on in our district. I do have a question following up on Mr. Crescenzo's question on the baseball fields and issues that have been raised in the questions that people have asked me in the community. And historically, our school district facilities have been used by community groups like the Little Leagues. Is that still the case, or because there's word, I think, out there that the Little Leagues are no longer being allowed to use the Middletown school facilities, that they're using now Circleville and other areas, so what's the status on that?
Yes, I understand that that's maybe a question out in the community, but I can assure you that there's been no denial, I repeat, absolutely no denial to the Middletown Little League to participate on the fields. Like all other organizations requesting access to our field or facilities, they have to fill the building use forms And when those are submitted in completed form, we will act in accordance with the timeline for expediency.
Okay,
Right, in fact, I'm the one that signs them. I have not seen one come through for the Little League. So.
okay, all right. I'm
Other
just
than
asking.
using the indoor facility for registration or something, or indoor training.
Well, that's good in the interest of clarity. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Gomez, may I ask you, have you had a concern that access has been denied, or you just?
I personally had a concern. I mean, the questions are raised, or people, I hear rumors. I want to make sure that the questions are answered. But I mean, I know our facilities, again, serve many activities in our school district.
If I could answer
And
that.
it's good to know that.
I had a question about somebody with Little League, and what it was misunderstanding on their part.
Okay.
Something to do with the paperwork or whatever, but that has been resolved. And they had nothing but nice things to say about the way
Great.
this
Yeah, I
program
understand
works.
it. From what Mr. DelMoro said, it's a process, an application process, and
Yeah.
first come, first serve. So more or less.
Well, we've been working collaboratively with the Middletown Little League for
For a long
years, and we will continue to do that as they fill the appropriate annual forms out. As Mr. Crescenzo aptly indicated, that there was some misunderstanding, as I understand. Be that as it may, that organization in particular has not been denied the use of the field. When all the forms are completed, and the program will move forward as always.
Excellent. Thank you.
Just on that same note, I know years ago, also some of the travel teams used some of our facilities as well.
Yes.
Are there any travel teams using our facilities currently? I know that we have multiple fields now, the new field that's here, the new fields that have been updated across town. What's the community use on these fields?
Our fields and gymnasiums and buildings are used considerably by the community. I do know that our buildings are constantly being used, but remember that during school time, or the priority of the use of those facilities are our school teams and our school clubs, etc. When those are not in use by our school activities, certainly they have that process to fill out. And obviously, we only have X number of, let's say, for example, gymnasiums. Those are used very, very often by various outside groups. Obviously, there may be a denial only because there's no time limit
Right. Yeah.
to use it. But we'll continue to follow that process, and it's used considerably. Our facilities are used by our community, and happily to report that we do have that involvement.
Yeah,
by
I
the
do.
community.
There are
That's
travel
great.
baseball teams using it.
I mean, yes.
I think case in point is that I think that our partnership, even with Parks and Recreation, is extensive and use of different programs. I also, of course, one of the groups that I'm connected to, we utilize the Carter Gym on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays to play basketball, and but that partnership is of such is that if there is an event that's going on at the school, we're not there. The group is not there that night. But it's also what's really exciting about those partnerships is that, in particular with this group, is that they've also partnered up with the school to help in events like the food drive and the coat drives, and during the holidays when there's bringing in things for people that are less fortunate. So. Absolutely, there's a lot of use of all of our facilities that I see from my estimation. I think that sometimes periodically there's some rumors that go out, and I'm not one to follow rumors. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but periodically there's rumors that are going out. Even going back to the point when we weren't able to, because of the construction that we had, we weren't able to house the sports camp on last year. And so the rumor was out for a few minutes there that we weren't going to host them again, but that was never the case. We laid it out way ahead of time. Chris Brinkeroff was very aware of it, but of course, stuff people say stuff and it gets out there, and we know negative stuff flies a lot faster than positive stuff. So, but for the most part, I think we're in good shape. And then, so it's my turn now? Because I was just adding. Okay, so I think it's important to note that with all of these projects, it's important to note that, again, this is at no cost to taxpayers.
Correct.
At all. This is at no cost to the taxpayers. For any of the questions that we've experienced and we have received over the last couple of weeks, this is absolutely right now one of the examples of what is in use, and these are necessary changes, necessary improvements, especially for the library and the library area, because it brings the library now into the 21st century, and it brings it into a place where we now match up with the other new facilities that we've already improved on, with the third floor and with the downstairs, with the basement area. It makes no sense to have those collaborative areas be so modern, and we're still in a 1980s library. And so, and as far as textbooks or books, printed materials and things like that, I happen to have a very extensive library at home. I own probably about 100 Bibles. As a pastor, I own about 100 Bibles. But I'll be honest, I haven't cracked maybe 90 of those Bibles in the last 5 years, because everything I have now, including any of my resources, any of my concordances and things of that nature, is all in digital content. And so I mean everything's either on my computer, it's on my iPad, or I access it digitally. So it's wonderful to be able to have a book, to be able, if you like the feel of leather, if you like the feel of the book, and sometimes I do, but it's easier for me too, because I can go right on my phone right now, and I've probably got outlines for about 100 different sermons on my phone right now. So I've got 5 different Bibles on my phone. So, and that's the wave of the future. And so if we want our children to keep up, then we have to continue to move forward, even with our facilities, so that they'll be able to continue to move into the future as well. So I think this is great. And I think that this just is the beginning of other things. There's a lot more, bigger things that we're looking at, and bigger things that we have to consider as we go along. But this is a great start. So thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. I want to key on what Bishop Williams has said. 2 things. Number one, we've done $180 million in construction with only an average homeowner $10. So when the person, the last meeting, stood at the mic and said, "Be careful how you spend your money," I have documents to prove we're spending our money very wisely in this district, because that construction, it not only adds to the students' learnings, but it also adds to the community, with people coming in and buying houses in this community. So there's a reason why people are moving here, and the schools, believe me, are one of the reasons. The second thing Bishop Williams mentioned, and again we emphasize it, all this is going to be done with no additional cost to the taxpayers. Again, no cost to the taxpayers, but an enhancement of our facility for the students and for the community. Sometimes there's a misnomer that there's very little cooperation between us and the city. That is absolutely not true. Mr. DelMoro outlined the cooperation between the city and the Middletown Police Department on a number of occasions. I brought that up at the Legislator Maloney's forum, Middletown and Walk Hill. And also, just look at this. The Parks and Recreation on Saturday the 31st at 1 p.m. is sponsoring an Easter egg hunt for students 10 and under. Now, this impacts our students, and our students, the NJROTC, and other of our groups traditionally go up and help hide the Easter eggs. You mentioned the use of the high school. We have the spring break camp this year from 4:26 to 4:30, April 26th, 26th to the 30th, from 9 to 4. And that impacts our students. In addition, Chris Brinkerhoff hires high school students who run the camp. That's another aspect of cooperation. Jim Kelly, administrator of Maple Hill, is an overall charge. And if you're interested, any of these programs, please call 346-4180. There's also the spring soccer and cheerleading program, which impacts our cities. And another item, another area of cooperation, the after-school programs sponsored by the Parks and Recreation, not our program, but they use our facilities, the 3 elementary buildings. So there's a lot of areas, and anybody saying there's not a lot of areas or trying to stir up a problem, just ask them to give any of the board members a call. Summer camp also, on and on. We'll cover that later on. It's a little premature for the summer camp. So thank you, Mr. Tuttle, for the presentations this evening.
Yes, sir.
And now we have a presentation. Mr. Sorrentino is not here, but Mr. DelMoro is going to talk about the course catalog, in which we have added from 2009 to 2010, 33 new courses in this district. This district has not lost courses. The courses that have been lost over the years, I remember when I went to school, Latin, I took Latin. No interest in it now. Typing, that was excess. Some of the business courses, the enrollment was low in these, on and on and on. But we've added 33 courses for the people who say that that our children are being disadvantaged. And we have a couple of additions this evening. Mr. DelMoro, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Perino. In transmittal, sorry, pardon me, I hit the wrong button. In transmittal, you received the proposed 2018-19 course catalog. As you can see here, it has an extensive number of courses. On the front page, it has one of our students in one of our collaborative science classrooms that opened up this past fall. But on the front cover, it highlights that we still are maintaining 103 free, yes, I'm repeating myself, free college courses, tuition-free college courses. And of course, all the textbooks are part of the free appropriate education. So there is really minimal cost to the families and students to avail themselves that from several of our universities. But what I'd like to bring to your attention tonight and for your approval on pages 21 is the Seal of Biliteracy. We talked about this. And this is a new seal that we are participating in, is offered by State Education Department. And Mrs. Bratt and I move forward on this initiative whereby students who like to excel in the area of foreign languages can take 2 or more high-level language courses at the high school and receive the seal on their diploma and also a sash during graduation evening event. So we're very excited about this program as we're moving forward for September and moving our kids in the field of, if we talk about them, global awareness, we have to move away from just being monolingual which is a propensity in this country. But we're moving away from that in terms of having kids have the opportunity and access to higher level courses. The two new courses that come for you tonight with a course credit attached to it as required by State Education Department is one in math and one in the English departments. And as you know, as we make our endeavors to have children more college ready, obviously the Scholastic Aptitude Test and also the ACT test are two of entrance examinations that colleges and universities still require in many, many cases for students to be part of the application process. So on page 33, you will see the course there that indicates that we're moving a preparation course during the school day on the math day, on an X day, and a Y day, the English course. So each of them have a value of 0.25 or a total of 0.5, a half a credit for a semester for the students to gain in preparation for those examinations that are given periodic from the summer all the way to the end of the school term. And we are a center for the SAT, so students can sign up for that and be prepared to really excel on those particular endeavors, those assessments in particular. So very excited about this. We've never had this before. We've had Scholastic Aptitude preparation after school for the students, but I think that there are many, many more students that have difficulty in meeting that after school because of work or other responsibilities, so we can put it into their schedule and they'll get some credit for that endeavor. The rest of the catalog indicates what parents should be looking for in terms of the continuing trek, if you will, through the college courses in terms of meeting requirements for graduation, what's mandated, what's permissible for electives, and all of the teachers teaching that. The academies are here in a very, very user-friendly format. We will have this, loaded up to our website. We'll have a few of these printed in each of the buildings. I'll give them out to the PTO presidents. So we're availing ourselves and moving forward in terms of really notifying all of the courses. If you look at pages 24 and 25, you can see the plethora of courses and opportunities, really trying to encourage students to support their interests and passions beyond just the mandated courses inside each of the curricular areas. So I ask for your approval this night so we can put this out and get this going. The PTO parents are excited about this, and we're going to move these into the middle school because what happens in the middle school really sets the tone and the stage for when they enter in the high school. So we're just not moving forward with only our incoming 9th and, of course, the current 9th grades for 10th next year and 10th, 11th, so on. But when the counselors went in mid-January to the middle schools, they presented this draft copy as to what the students would need to move in, because the biggest interest by parents today are the access to the free and college courses. And we had to ensure them that there has been no interest on our part to eradicate them. They're going to still be there for. And matter of fact, in my meeting yesterday with the coordinators, the art, music, and media center coordinators, was asked that if there are any new courses given, let's say, in the arts by Syracuse University, we will certainly bring that aboard with pleasure. So we're constantly looking to grow upon what we have, and this document here is a wealth of information for parents and to seek access to their counselors if they have any questions. And I'll entertain any questions from the board members. Yes, Mr.
Go around.
I have a real easy question. So, we're so technologically advanced. How does, oh, sorry.
I apologize. I know that this is online as well, the
Yes.
course is online as well.
The
How
whole
many,
catalog.
yeah, and it's a beautiful catalog. Obviously, for someone my age looking at it, and maybe for some of the parents, this is great. But are we encouraging, how many of these are actually being printed? Who gets these, or are they just for us? What's the,
Excellent question. Obviously, we are not sending one out to every household because we're in the technological age, but we have to be aware of some of the households that do not have internet access. So we're printing, I think we have about 200 of these to print. We'll disseminate some of them to the high school and to families that really need the print copy.
okay, thank you. I
You're
was
welcome.
just curious because
Excellent
it's
question.
beautiful in the print copy, but even for me now, looking at courses, I would want to search and go and do it that way.
It's
and that's
online,
what we're
it's
trained,
uploaded.
how we're trained now.
Yes.
Mr. Crescenzo.
No, I don't have any questions, but again, just overwhelmingly impressed with the content and what we have to offer to this community. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's a collaborative effort. As you can see, this doesn't happen in one office. I'll be very honest. It's a collaborative effort, meeting with the department chairs who meet with the teachers about what courses that they would like to add, things like that, even little nuances within courses about, for example, the criteria for honors. The teachers might want to, and they did, make some minor changes to that. So this is looked at every year, annually updated, but by requirement of State Education Department, when a non-Regents course is created, which we just did, that Scholastic Aptitude Prep course, and credit is given, the local Board of Education must approve it.
And those reasons that you outlined is exactly why this is so successful. Thank you so much.
And also, just if I can comment, that the balance to offer a variety and yet fly full planes, and not fly empty planes. I mean, it's you just want to be able to offer so much and yet meet the needs so that we're not having classes of 3 or 4. We don't have that kind of space. So, am I making myself clear?
Yes, it's one of the things that Mr. Perino was alluding to. We constantly look at that and make those difficult decisions.
Because I remember a few years ago when that was an issue, and we had a lot of classes, but not a lot of people in them, and many of those sections were empty, and so it's great to see that we've evolved from that, and we're moving in that direction to know what is working, do our research, and make sure that we're offering the
Absolutely do that.
programs.
We monitor this very closely. I constantly are asking, what are the class loads at the fall and spring scheduled semesters, and we make decisions based upon that. We monitor that. Quite frankly, if I could put it succinctly, the catalog here in courses is consumer-driven by the students. And students have an eclectic interest, so we have to, we would not be where we are today if we were not focusing and having our hand on the pulse of all of that interest. So talking to kids based upon what they want to do. For example, the dance class. I remember when we had recommended a dance class, everybody looked at us, what do you want a dance class? Right? So we ventured in there because students weren't participating in the swim because they didn't want to dress into their swim and whatever. There was
They don't get their hair wet.
Get all wet. I have my makeup on. Whatever.
It's true.
Those were the reasons that were submitted to me. So we said, I had a meeting with Mr. Coates and said, look, we have to think about some outside the box here. There must be other venues to get children to participate in physical activity. Let's start with, we started small. So if you remember, we hired Mrs. Parisi, who had, fortunately, dual certification, phys ed as well as dance instructor. Right? We started out with 2 sections. We next year may come to you with another need for another teacher in dance alone. That program has taken off like gangbusters.
Yeah.
The same thing with guitar. We needed more opportunities for different types of instrumentation, right? We put in a guitar class. We started, I'll never forget this, we started out with 1 section, and now we have almost 2 teachers teaching, 8 sections in total.
Both of my kids, when it was introduced, both of them,
Right?
in 4 years
The next one
apart,
is keyboarding.
did the guitar.
Not for the computer, but for
And piano
instruments.
too, yeah.
Right? That is going on gangbusters, what we're talking about with renovating that room to another place, because we need a larger space for that. For the middle school, we brought teachers into the middle school for that. We have really more music teachers at a middle school than most middle schools would have given our size, because we wanted to give them those opportunities, drums or instrumentation in terms of keyboarding. So yes, we do monitor and make the changes based upon our needs.
And I think that it speaks so strongly to the fact that, yes, so many people say, all right, well, stick with, math,
The
and
basics.
this and the basics, and, that's what our kids need. And we know that they need it, but they need it in creative ways that they're going to be interested in and that they're going to feel challenged in, and yet they feel like they can succeed. And that's the goal. And that's why we're seeing, in addition to the fact that we're encouraging our kids, I think that's because we're taking into consideration what our kids need and want and can be successful in, is all related to the success we're having ultimately at the end with our graduation rates.
There's no doubt about that. There's no silver bullet, but you make a very subtle but very important point. I'll give you and the community a prime example of what you're talking about. When we brought in orchestra, string classes to our community for our kids to have access to, right? We did a study on what impact that would have on their academic math and ELA performance. And those students, we had like quite honestly, a control group. Those who were in, those who didn't participate, they went into another, venue, right? Those children scored higher because there is a abundance of research about those who take instruments and the correlation about their math capabilities or improving that because of the instrumentation, the fingering, the understanding about notes, and so on and so forth. So there is a direct correlation there, so that indirectly their academic math work, because they now are in strings class. But most people may not think that that's possible, but that is occurring in the research, and our research supports what the research out there, the professional research, has about that. But we have several courses that integrate other skills in other courses. For example, our humanities class, right? That's where you're combining the standards of the English curriculum also with the social studies curriculum. Now, both of those curriculums have made major changes over the last 12 months as State Education Department is moving from Common Core to the next generation, which is more analytics, more interpretation, more comprehension in terms of understanding and making arguments based upon that information. Very different. The global test is changing this year, and the U.S. changing next year. And of course, we know there was major change 2 years ago to the English regions. So we make all of these changes for various reasons, and that are little pieces to that road to higher success rate at graduation. You're absolutely correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blumenau and Mr. DelMoro. Mr. Gomez, go right ahead.
I just wanted to say that I love this. I wish I were a student to take some of these courses.
Well,
And with your permission, I'm going to take it to my kids, my oldest. But let me say, if with respect to the Seal of Biliteracy, if Thomas Jefferson is in heaven and he'd be looking down on us, he'll be smiling. This goes right with our forefathers' vision. When he drafted the proposal for the University of Virginia, his vision was that students there not only will master the English language, but also, as future leaders, defenders of freedom, master the classics, master foreign languages. And I think our school is ahead of the game, and it shows that I think public education works when it's by the people, of the people, and for the people. And giving our students this opportunity, not only to be excellent English learners and speakers, but being able to communicate in other languages, it'll prepare them in a bridge to the future where they could carry forward the torch of freedom, whether it be in the business world, law, medicine, or ministry. And I do commend Superintendent DelMoro for bringing our whole team for taking forward this vision and giving our students the opportunity to be those that will carry the torch of that fire that should truly light the world. Thank you so much.
Pastor Williams, I don't think you're going to be able to top that, but you can try.
I just want to say I've been looking forward to this catalog, especially as probably being right now, well, not Mr. Pierre as well, but as being the parent of a high school age student. My son is in his first year at the high school, and I've been looking forward to this course catalog because it gives us the opportunity to sit down even with him. My wife and I to sit down even with him, and then of course, you know, my second son is coming along as a sixth grader in the middle school. Before long, that he'll be at the high school, and so I'm excited. One of the things that I do applaud what's been done in the district is the ability to be able to adapt to the changing times. You know, there were programs, and Mrs. Blumenau talked about it for a second, but there's programs that we had in place that because we didn't have the enrollment, because things weren't working, you know, we were brave enough to be able to step back and say, okay, this is not working, let's shift, and let's move to the next thing. And I think that's real important, not to be so short-sighted or so blinded by the fact that we put this in place and we're going to make this work. We're going to fit this square peg into this round hole. And so that's been one of the great things that I've noticed that this district has done over the years. You know, I can recall, and you talked about the guitar programs and the piano programs and things of that nature. I can recall in Twin Towers Middle School 40 years ago, the guitar program was a boom. It was a big thing because back then everybody wanted to play Stairway to Heaven. You know, so I mean, we were all doing. Now it's shifted from the rock and roll scene to more of the folk scene and more of the pop scene and things of that nature. But you know, and there was a time when that fell off. You know, just the same as when I was in school, everybody that I knew was about 6'2" and up, and then we had a shift in the years when most of the high school kids were about this tall. You know, and now we're back to these big, tall kids again. So it's a shift in everything. But we have to be able to be willing to adapt to the changing times, so that our kids are caught up with the world that's surrounding them. And I call that being even in my field is being relevant, being able to understanding or discerning the times that's around you. And so when we do that, we create an atmosphere of success for the next generation that's coming along. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to sitting down and even going through this with my wife and my son and looking all that. I see some things in here that I already know I'm going to be sitting in the back of the class observing over the course of the next year. I'm like, yeah, I want to learn something about that. So it's exciting.
On page 2, that's the tracker. That's the track for graduation and extensive. So this is an important page for parents.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at it. It's really, and it's really it's great because I'll be honest. You know, when I was coming along in school, we really didn't know what we really needed as freshmen. We didn't know what we needed.
Exactly.
You know, we didn't start preparing for anything until we got to our junior year. And sometimes most of the kids that I graduated with didn't start preparing to their senior year. And so our kids now are preparing. I've sat down with my son and said, listen, you're a freshman. This is the time. This is the time that you begin to set the stage for your future. I says, because these 4 years are going to go by very fast. So thank you. This is great. I'm excited, and I'm on board completely.
Now, I doubt that some college catalogs are as extensive as that, and Just a word, one of the last meeting, the question was raised about cutting staff. Since 2009, 2010, we've added 53 instructional staff positions. I deal in numbers. I don't deal in theories, and that is the number that we've added. Great job on the course catalog. I've heard nothing but positive things about the courses in MHS, and people approach me and say that their children have walked away with almost 2 years and sometimes 2 years of college credit. So we will now go on. That will be approved during the action items. So as Bishop Williams said, let's go and let's get cracking here. Okay, financial action items. Let's see here. Motion to approve financial memorandum number 21 as presented.
So moved.
Any further discussion? We've had this on board docs. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Approval of the special service memorandum number 18. Motion to approve.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion approved. Approval of CEQA for reconstruction of high school library and improvement in athletic facilities at the high school. Motion to approve the CEQA for reconstruction of high school library and improvement to the athletic facilities at the high school as was presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Tuttle did an excellent job.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Motion to approve CEQA negative declaration for reconstruction of high school library and improvement to athletic facilities at the high school as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good job again, Mike, on those presentations.
Yes, sir. Good job.
Approval of resolution to establish an hourly pay rate for teachers providing instruction during after-school programs.
So moved.
I believe I have to read this. Motion to approve. Our parliamentarian is saying yes over there. Motion to approve the resolution to establish an hourly rate to pay for teachers providing instruction during after-school programs as follows. Whereas the superintendent of schools, quote, superintendent recommends that an hourly rate of pay be established for certified teachers providing instructional services during after-school programs that take place during the regular school year. Whereas the superintendent seeks to set the hourly rate of pay for certified teachers providing instructional services during after-school programs that take place during the regular school year at $50 per hour. Now therefore be it resolved that upon the superintendent's recommendation, the board hereby approves the establishment of the above-mentioned rate as recommended. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second on that? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Motion to approve the course addition in the course catalog beginning in the 2018-2019 school year.
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Motion to change the Board of Education meeting calendar to move the last meeting of the year to June 14, 2018.
So moved.
Any further discussion?
Could you just clarify when was the meeting that was moved to the 14th? Was there?
The meeting would have been, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Richard.
We changed the Board of Ed meeting calendar again, but can you I didn't see the
Board of
explanation
Education
of.
meeting.
Yeah, BOE meeting, yeah.
The
What?
BOE meeting.
Here.
Board of Education meeting.
Why?
The meeting would have been on the 21st.
Which was the day,
The
oh,
regular
which we
meeting,
had.
Which is the day before
Right,
graduation.
Baccalaureate day.
Baccalaureate. Got
Baccalaureate
it.
day.
Never mind, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you for
See,
the
that's what
question.
happens when you don't have children in the school anymore. Like, oh yeah, baccalaureate, right?
Okay, let's see, I think we need a, last meeting to June 14th. Did we get a second on that? Okay, we had discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Motion to approve changes to the 17-18 pupil instruction calendar, which we had covered. Any second on that?
Oh, okay.
Any discussion or questions?
No.
Question on that? Discussion?
Yes.
Any comments? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? See, opportunity to address the board? Anybody?
No?
Second
Why don't we set up all
opportunity?
these seats?
Guess there's no takers unless Tom, Bill, Russ, or Mark want to come up. Rick, okay, right, that would be under, Rick's not here tonight, but Rick, printer, Bill's assistant in the printing shop, how many years, Bill? 13 years, excellent job, that shop runs like a clock, great job for Bill and Rick. Thank you. Any committee reports? You had a committee report on fair funding, any other?
Yes, there will be a Fair Funding Committee meeting at 4:30 on the 20th of March, first day of spring. No better way than to begin the spring with a Fair Funding Committee meeting.
And you will inform everybody so I don't get a call
Yes.
from members saying,
Yeah, I think there was a little confusion as to the new
yeah.
date, but it's going to be March 20th, yeah.
okay, good, you got that, and you'll inform the people, and you got some very active members on the
Oh, yeah, they're
committee.
great.
Let's see. Any new and compelling board member comments?
I do want to add one thing before I leave. Oh, whenever the chair's ready.
Anything?
Yes, no, I just wanted to follow up on what both the President and Ms. Blumenauer said with respect to the community forum we had on Sunday, sponsored by Congressman Maloney. First, I want to thank Mr. Perino for making it possible to bring this forum to our school district. And again, another example of our President's lifetime commitment to our children, which I know he's given heart and soul, and thank you for that. And with respect to I think the end of the community forum, in the midst of the different views that were expressed by the participant, I think there was an underlying theme support, I think across the board, for increased school security, but increased funding from both the federal and state level. I was happy to hear that Congressman Maloney did mention there's bipartisan legislation making its way through Congress that would provide resources for school districts for everything from either selecting the security they want to implement at the school, be it SROs or be it contracted private security officers, as well as for tech and other upgrades to make sure our schools are safe. And what's important here, whether it be at the state or local level, especially at the local level, at the state level, which will bear the brunt long term, is that whatever's earmarked whatever fund be specifically earmarked for school security and not compromised in future budgets, that the school district don't end up with an unfunded mandate where they have the burden of academics versus safety. Safety should never be compromised. Academics should never be compromised. So I think it's important that parents, families, everyone who cares for our children's safety send their messages to Albany as well as to Washington, saying yes to school security, but make it a long-term commitment. That's something that's going to fall on the wayside, as has happened in the past. Because if our children are not safe, I think nothing else matters. Those are my comments.